Welcome everybody back to another episode of Win Government Contract Podcast. My name is Abraham. I am your host here. It's so good to see some of you joining us on time. Today, we got some good stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the 1% Government Contracting Club. And is it a club that you want to join? So that's what we're going to be talking about. The 1% Club that is so exclusive, only a few people ever figure out how to join the GovCon 1% Club. So that's the topic that we're going to be talking about. If you're joining us live, thank you for joining us live. And if you're watching this on replay, thank you for being part of the replay podcast here. Please, in this episode here, if you're joining us live, leave your name and not your name, but your business name and where you're joining us from, just so that we can kind of get a little bit of perspective of who's with us and where you're joining us from. So company name and your location of where you're joining us from. So with that, we're going to talk about the GovCon 1% Club. So what is the Government Contracting 1% Club? Everybody that's out there, most people want to join this club here. And this club here is so exclusive that a small fraction of companies ever get to this point, and most of them really never get to where they want to go. So let me start. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start from the premise of what is the 1% Club, and then we're going to look at it from a scientific approach to this. We're going to look at some data. We're going to look at some numbers, and then we'll see how you can be part of this 1% Club. And so we'll start with that there. So let me share my screen. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to share my screen. And in fact, let me kind of go over the agenda a little bit with us in 1 second here. So as I'm sharing my screen, I'm going to go over the agenda for us for today here. So this is our agenda for today. We will be doing a giveaway at the very end of this episode here. Plus, we have a giveaway that everybody's going to get, and we have one special giveaway. So stay to the very end for us to do the giveaway. But this is our what we're going to cover today. What is the 1% Club, and why so few businesses are in this club here? What you are doing in the private sector may not translate into the government contracting sector, because there's lots of successful businesses out in the private sector, but not all of them can transition into the government market. So we'll look at some of the pitfalls and challenges with that. And then we're going to look at 7 keys to unlocking contracting success for you. And then at the very end, we'll do the giveaway for everybody. So that's our topic for the day. But I'm going to do, as with anything, our sessions here, we're going to do, it's very practical. And I'm going to take you through a path that is just a very practical approach in terms of because we're not talking about theories, we're not talking about just concepts and principles, right? We're talking about practical things. And so we're going to give you some very specific things in terms of what you can do here. So let me go ahead and dive in. So I'm going to first ask, how many businesses are in the US, right? Now, according to the SBA, there's about 33 million businesses in the US. That's the number of companies that's in the US here. But the GovCon Club is less than 1%. So how can someone, you as a business owner, you're part of the 33.2 million companies that's out there. How can you be part of the 1% Club, right? So let's talk about what is the 1% Club. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to come into USA Spending. Now I'm going to show you how to do it. I already have the document. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at how many companies are winning government contracts. And the 1% Club is this here. Companies that are winning government contracts. That's what we're talking about. The 1% Club is of the 33.2 million businesses out there, less than 1% are winning government contracts. And that's really what we're talking about. So that when you win your first contract, you are part of the 1% club. Very powerful, right? It's so exclusive that only a handful of people ever really figure it out. So the way we're going to define this is if you win one contract, you're part of the 1% club. And so USA Spending is the database that this should become one of your favorite website for all of you here. The this website here tracks all of the awards that's been given out on a consistent basis. So we can come here and do it by years. So I'm going to come check 2023 because fiscal year 2024 ends September 30th, and we're not quite there yet. So I'm going to look at one fiscal year, and I'm going to come here award types. I'm just going to look at contract and contract IDVs, and that's all I'm looking at. I'm not looking at anything else besides contracts. I'm not looking for grants, loans, or anything like that. And I'm going to go ahead and hit search because I want to look at from a very high level generic perspective, right? So for 1 year, 5,881,940 contracts were awarded last year in 2023. Most of this year is being won by large companies. You can see, right, that Lockheed Martin, they won $48 billion in contracts. That's correct. Lockheed Martin did 48 billion. Now, Humana, this has to do with insurance. So this is not necessarily for most of you guys because the government works directly with Humana through TRICARE and through other things. Humana supports a lot of the federal employees' benefits as well as military personnel benefits as it relates to healthcare. So this is, if you're in the healthcare sector, you're not going to be able to compete directly with Humana. Now, there's different aspects of healthcare that you can do, but in terms of selling healthcare to the government, they're not going to get major medical from you. They will do some supplemental insurance from you, and they might do other type of insurance from you, but major medical is not going to be, you're not going to be able to compete against Humana. Now, this company, UT Battelle, I bet you very few of you guys know who UT or what is UT Battelle. If you know what UT Battelle is, put it in the chat. It'd be interesting. $36 billion in contracts. I mean, that's a lot of money for a company that most of us have never heard of, right? I'm only familiar with them because I've done research on them, but many of you, like, who is Lockheed Martin, everybody knows, right? UT Battelle? Who is that? Jason has some questions. Feel free to put some questions there. I will address a lot of your questions as we go through this here. So let me kind of share with you a little bit. UT is the University of Tennessee. Battelle is Battelle Memorial Corporation. And so the university and Battelle Corporation came together and they formed this LLC. And a lot of this here has to do with the Department of Energy. So if I zoom out here, right, and you see that it's tied back to Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is a component of the Department of Energy. So a lot of work done through the Department of Energy goes to UT Battelle. So if you are doing things like that, UT Battelle is a great organization to be a subcontractor to. If you're in the energy space, do anything related to research around that. So these are all the companies, right? We can look through this list here, and these are most of these here, right? These big old billion-dollar contracts. These are big corporations. Now, just because they won a $20 billion contract doesn't mean that they realize the revenue immediately right now. What it does mean is that they realize that revenue over the years. So it might be a 5-year, 10-year award. So it's going to happen over a period of time. But this is the contract award itself here. So lots of these big companies like Boeing, Savannah River Nuclear Solutions. This is, there's some nuclear power plants in Savannah, Georgia. So again, Battelle Energy Alliance, Battelle set up a separate LLC. They got another $22 billion. Lots of money out there, but these are not the small businesses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a list here. And give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up this list. I've already, and so what you want to do first, let me show you what you should do here, right? What you want to do is you want to go here, and you want to narrow down. This is total contract awards in terms of 1 year. This is too much, so the system is not going to allow you to download this here. So what you want to do is you want to do it one more step. You want to come down here, you want to go to NAICS code, and you want to narrow it down to your specific NAICS code so that you can be able to better fine tune this process. But here, if you look at the total awards, right, the Department of Defense awarded $456 billion to businesses. If you're thinking, who should I work for, right? Who should I sell my product and services to? They represent, of the $759 billion last year, DoD awarded over 50% of all the contracts. And then the VA, 61 billion, and the Department of Energy, 46 billion, HHS, 38 billion. So the biggest agency that you should focus on is DoD, and then within DoD, you've got Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy. You also have Space Force, right? Space Force is a new agency. And there's also Space Command, right? Because not my generation, but Gen Alpha, they're going to be going to space. I mean, I think 2 weeks ago, we had the first non-government, non-NASA astronauts going into space, right? We have civilians who are trained by the private sector. They went into space, not just the atmosphere of Earth, but actually into space, where they actually walked out. That happened about 2 weeks ago. So how we travel today, where we travel by just getting on an airplane, and we can go from here to Paris in a matter of a few hours. In the future, Gen Alpha, maybe Gen Z, but Gen Alpha, they're going to be able to say, hey, you know what you doing this weekend? Oh, I'm going to the moon. That's a reality. That's happening in this Gen Alpha generation. We might see it in some of our older generation. We might see them do it, but we're probably not going to be able to do ourselves. But at that point, we might be a little bit over the hill, right? Now, some of you say, Abe, I will never be over the hill, and that's awesome. And you can do that too. But DoD has Space Force and Space Command. And so those are new sub-agencies under DoD. So if you are interested in doing all types of work, DoD is going to be your number one priority. Everything else, there's money with everybody else too. So some of these, depending on your niche, right? Some of these other agencies might be a better fit for you. My point with this here, there's lots and lots of money, $760 billion awarded. The money's there for you to go after. It does take a lot of hard work to get there. You're not going to get there overnight, but commit to this here, and I promise you, you will get to the contracts that you position yourself. So the opportunities are there. So how do you become the 1% that gets a piece of this pie, right? And so what we're going to do is, first, we're going to come in here. I want to see if anybody knows your primary NAICS code. If you know your primary NAICS code, put it into the chat, and I'm going to pull up your NAICS code here. And we're going to see how much was awarded in your NAICS code, in your industry. Does anybody know their primary NAICS code? Put in the chat if you know your primary NAICS code. Now, there's two numbers I encourage you to memorize. One is your primary NAICS code. And the government buys in terms of commodity codes, right? So for the federal market, the commodity code is called North American Industry Classification System. That's the commodity codes for the federal market. Now, some states use NAICS code as well, but some states have their own commodity codes. Some of them use NIGP codes. Some states and counties and cities, they use the United Nations commodity codes. So different type of commodity codes out there. So I see we've got 541612. So we're going to look at 541612, and we're going to see, in terms of HR consulting services, how much the government awarded under this one NAICS code in 1 year. So we're going to reshuffle this here. So they awarded 1,395 contracts. Magellan Federal is one of the largest one. Accenture Federal, 161 million, 156 million. These are large companies. Now, this is why it's important for you to know this here. When a large company, they're part of the 1% club. When they win a contract, they are required to subcontract 35% to small businesses. And so that's just part of the regulation. Now, sometimes it's a little bit less, sometimes it's a little bit more. But on average, about 35% of contracts are or need to be subcontract to small business. So of this 161 million dollars in contract, a major part of that should be subcontracted. So Accenture Federal, right? 156 million. 35% of that must be subcontracted to small business. But what you want to do is, there's a lot of small businesses that are winning these contracts too. They're part of the 1% club. But what you should do now is you're going to click the download button, and you're going to click on award, and you're going to click on everything. And it's going to download this document for you. And then based upon that, you can see who's part of the 1% club. So what I'm going to do is I've already have it downloaded. And because this takes about 15 minutes to download because there's a lot of data, I've already got it downloaded. And I'm going to pull up my copy of it. So I'm going to pull up this document, and I'm going to dive in deeper into this here. So what I did was I pull up the list of all the companies that's winning government contracts. And these are the companies that's part of the 1% club. So if we take this here, there's a total of 500, and in fact, let me go all the way to the bottom. 550,000-ish, right? So if we look here, so there's a total of 549,000 companies that are registered to do work for the federal government. Only a handful of them are winning contracts. So we're going to break that down in a second. So with this here, let me do the math on this here, right? Let me bring up my calculator and let's do the math in terms of this exclusive club of 1%er. So we're going to take the 33 million companies. So that's 100 million, one more zero. So that's 33 million businesses. And of that, only 550,000 are actually registered to be vendors for the government. So we're going to divide that, right? So that's about, let's do it in reverse. 550 divide that by 33 million businesses. So that's 0.01%. So less than 2% of businesses are actually registered to be a vendor with the federal government. So you're talking about 2% here, right? 2%, I'm going to be generous. I'm going to say 1.6, we're just going to round up. 2% of companies are registered to be a vendor to the government, to the federal government. So now if you are registered in SAM, you are already in the 2% club. But the 2% club just means you're registered in SAM. You want to be part of the 1% club. So I'm going to show you how you can, what is the 1% club specifically. So this is my document. These are all the companies that are registered. And then I'm going to dive a little deeper. And I'm going to come back here and we're going to take this here and this sheet here. What I do is I pull all the companies are actively winning contract. I'm going to do it in descending order so that I can see. This is fiscal year 2022 here, and I asked you guys to do fiscal year 2023. So, so you can see that all these companies are winning contracts, and so some of these are winning more than others. So I'm going to scroll this down, and I'm going to go all the way down to where it's zero. And we're going to see exactly how many companies are actually winning contracts. And then we'll know exactly what the 1% club is. And then we're going to talk about how you can be part of the 1% club. Okay. All right. So, oh man, it's okay. Here it is. Here is it. Here's right here, right? So some company, they want $1, right? They're part of the 1% club, right? So this company here, uh, so there's 51,170 companies that actually receive money. Now, in terms of actual money. Now let's go down because some of these they won contract, but they haven't received any revenue yet. So I'm gonna go further down to so there's about I'm just rounding up to about 50,000. So let's break that down a little bit. So we're gonna break this down a little bit. So companies that actually are receiving revenue from the federal government, right? So that's 51,000 companies. Divide that by 33 million. Look at this here. 0.001. So that's 1/10 of all 1/10 of 1%, right? So not even 1% of all the companies in the United States. There's 33 million businesses in the US, and there's only 51,000 that receive funding from the federal government or contract awards from or revenue more so. So you're talking about very exclusive. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at in terms of this list here, how many actually won at least. They may not have received revenue, but they won one contract, right? Because right here it tells you this column here talks about the number of contracts they won. So I'm gonna go a little further down to see how many actually won contract, but just haven't got revenue yet. Oops, too far. There we go. Okay, so 73,000 companies actually won contracts. Some of these they got negative revenue. Now, negative revenue is maybe there's different reasons, right? Maybe they got fired from the project, they did bad past performance, or it could be what they won a contract, but and the government reported as awarded, and then next year it got deallocated funding. They changed their game plan. They don't need that service anymore, or something like that. So a small percentage of this here, you see some negative numbers here. And that just means that the government chose not to, where you see negative number, the government says, okay, we're going to deallocate the funding. So it could be for a few different reasons. Maybe they failed to perform, they got fired, or now the government, let me clarify that. This is actually a good opportunity to educate some of you about the process of getting fired from the government. First, assuming that you don't do a good job on a project, the government's not just going to fire you. There is a process to that. And so if you're new in the government market, don't panic, right? Just because you don't understand full compliance, you don't understand rules and regulations, you don't understand Service Contract Act, health and welfare benefits, you don't understand a lot of different rules. And so you're trying to figure it out. And so if you make a mistake or you fail to perform on something, the government's just not going to say, "Ooh, we're going to list you on the excluded party listing, and you're going to be banned from ever doing government contracted work." That's not the case. There is a process to it. So first, let's assume something goes wrong on a project, whether it's intentional or accidentally, or just because you just don't know. The first thing the government's going to do is the government's going to communicate with you, say, "Hey, there's some issues with here. Let's fix it." Right? Just like they're real people too. And so they're not going to just, treat you like you're a robot and cut you off. Right? So there's going to be some communication. Hey, there's some issues. Let's fix it. And then what you want to do is you want to address it with them. Assuming after they notify you and you haven't fixed it, they're going to give you probably once or twice or maybe even three times to fix the problem. If it's not done through like email or through verbal communication, then what they're going to give you what's called a cure notice, CURE, a cure notice. A cure notice is a formal process to where they say, if you don't fix this here, you will be in trouble with the government. You will not get paid. You will be excluded from the ever doing government contracting work again for EPLS, right? So there's a cure notice. And so when you receive a formal cure notice, you have to fix it. So at this point here, there is no way of, oh, I'm just going to abandon the contract. If you abandon the contract, you will never do government work again until you fix the problem. So if you and actually had, tell your true story. I was working with a company and they were in the government market before I met them. And so they already won like a million. They do a demolition work. So they already won a $1 million contract. And it didn't go well. So they just abandoned the project. The contracting officer, the communication didn't go well. So they just abandoned the project. And a little bit time passed by, but they came to me and said, "Hey, Abe, can you guys help us win more contracts? Because we don't know what we're doing, and we got lucky on one, but we still don't know what we're doing." So I asked him about the history of what they've done. I said, "Tell me about the contract you won." And he said, "Yeah, we won one, but we got into some issues, so we just kind of left it." And I said, "If you abandon the project, you will never win another government contract again. I cannot help you if you abandon a previous project." So he said, "Well, what should I do?" We said, "You have to go and eat humble pie, go back to the contracting officer and apologize to them. Tell them that you want to fix the problem. And all you want to do is you will do whatever they ask you, whatever it takes to fix the problem. And all you ask is for a satisfactory completion. It doesn't have to be a stellar review because the minimum is satisfactory, right? Anything beyond that is negative, and that doesn't help you." So he went, ate humble pie, and the contract officer, this was the comment. Contract officer said, "Yeah, we thought you abandoned the project, and at the end of this month, we were going to put you on EPLS. And once he gets on EPLS, fixing it becomes extremely hard." So fortunately for him, that was the situation. It turned out to where he was actually able to go out there. We were able to help him to win a $1.2 million contract about 6 months after that incident there. So we're looking at 73,000 companies that have some type of contract awards. So not a lot. So we're talking about 1/10 of 1% of the companies in the United States. So we're not even talking about 1%. We're talking about 1/10 of 1% are actually winning government contracts. So it is a exclusive club that so few people know how to get into this industry because it is so exclusive. And you look at all these companies, they're trying to win contract, but there's only, there's 550,000 and 73,000 are winning contracts. So let's break this down. Let me share a little bit of the good news, right? A little bit of the good news is this here. So let's break this down a little bit here. So let's take 73,000 companies that are actually winning contracts. We're going to divide that by the 550,000 companies that's registered in SAM. So that's 13.2%. 13.2% of the companies that are registered in SAM are winning contracts. So your odds greatly increase. You're part of the 10% club if you're registered in SAM. So your chances of winning is better than just not doing anything. So about 13% of the companies that are registered in SAM are actively winning contracts. The rest, they still don't know what they're doing. They haven't figured out how to actually win government contracts. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about what are you doing in the private sector, and your success in the private sector may not always translate into the government sector. So let's talk about that for a second here. So many of you're very successful in the private sector. You've built multi-million-dollar corporation. You've sold businesses in the past. But what you've done in the private sector, transitioning to the government sector, is very different. Let me kind of give you share with everybody a quick story here. When I first came to the United States, I'm from a small little country called Laos. I didn't speak any English. We came here escaping a communist regime that took over the country. We allied with the United States, fought against the communist regime. And when the US pulled out of Vietnam, I was about 7 years old at that time. We pulled out as we fled the country because we didn't want to be under the communist regime. So we fortunate enough, we hid in the jungle, eventually made it to Thailand, and then a Lutheran church sponsored to come to the United States. So we were fortunate to do that there. But coming to America, it's a whole new world. We are the indigenous people of Laos, meaning culturally, we don't understand American culture. So we also don't speak the language, right? I speak a native language called Hmong, Hmong. And Hmong I would say it's a dying language to some degree, unfortunately, because, all of us here in the United States were speaking English. Our kids are speaking English. And so it's a dying language in the United States. Now, elsewhere, the Hmong communities are elsewhere in the world too, and they're keeping the language alive. So I'm glad that somebody is keeping the culture, the language. But so it's a different culture and different language. Many of you are trying to go from the private sector into the government sector. It's a new world. Just the same way I came to America, I didn't understand the culture. I didn't understand the language. And it's a different world in this way. Let me give you a practical cultural difference here. So as a Hmong person, if my mom invited you over for dinner and we're hanging out a little bit, my mom's gonna cook a lot of good food, and she's gonna bring it out and put it on the spread, and you're gonna get a chance to taste some really exotic Hmong food. In our culture, when she brings out the food, you're supposed to eat it, right? Just like anybody else, you eat the food. And in the Southern culture, I'm in Atlanta. So in the Southern culture, when you're a guest at someone's home, the cultural difference is this here. Southern culture means that you eat everything off your plate. That means that the food was awesome. The host did a great job. And culturally, if you eat everything off your plate, that means it was the bomb, right? That they did a great job. And that's without saying anything, you're making a statement culturally by cleaning your plate. Now, if you come over to my mom's house and you're cleaning your plate because it's culturally, you're trying to tell her you did a great job, mom. You ate all your food. You're telling her in a very cultural way that she did a great job. In my culture and in some Asian culture, when somebody eats everything off the plate, that means they're still hungry. So culturally, it's different. In the South, eating everything off your plate means that the food was awesome. The host did a great job. In my culture, if you eat everything off your plate, that means you're still hungry. And so what my mom's going to do is she's going to scoop some more food onto your plate. And you're cleaning it up. You're trying to tell her that the food was awesome, that she did a great job. But she's looking at your plate and it's empty, and she still thinks you're hungry, so she's going to scoop you more food. And so culturally, it's two different messages here. So practically, how does that translate to the government market? If you don't understand the culture in the government market, is this way here. If you're going to meet a contracting officer, and you say, hey, I brought you some golfing tickets to the Masters, and the ticket might cost you, a few $1,000s, and you're meeting with a contracting officer, and you put the two tickets, you've got them two tickets, and you put in a cup, and the cup has your company logo on it. You say, hey, I just want to, great, just telling you, great, it was great meeting you at the event, and set up a meeting to meet with you, and I got this little gift for you. And you give them a cup, which is like maybe $10 or something, but it has two Masters golfing tickets in it. Culturally, in the private sector, if you're hanging out with another company and you put just some golfing tickets in a cup, and your business logo cup on there, they're like, man, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is awesome. To the government market, that's considered bribery, because culturally that's not acceptable, and there is a limit. Now, you can get gifts. You can get gifts For most agency, up to $20. For federal agencies, I believe it's $25. So that's really all you can do is give them a cup with two pens in it. That's about it, right? Anything beyond that is considered bribery. Let me share with you another example. Um, I introduced a company and a contracting officer, and we went out to lunch together. Now, typically, contracting officer they're not going to go lunch with you, but this contracting officer, it's friendly. I know her, and she's got to know the company a little bit, so we all were out at lunch. And at the very end of lunch, the business owner said, um, "I would like to offer to pay for your lunch." Now, culturally in the private sector, yeah, if somebody offered to pay for your lunch, you say, "Oh yeah, thank you so much," right? The contracting officer, well, first the business owner, right? The contractor, they knew about the regulation, and so they make sure that it was appropriate. So they asked the contractor, "Is it okay if I pay for your lunch?" The contracting officer said, "We can only accept 3 meals a month, and I've already have surpassed that. So unfortunately, I cannot accept a you covering my lunch today." What does that tell culturally? What does that tell the contracting officer? That this business owner they understand rules and regulations. That it creates more trust. That they're going to say, okay, I want to work with this company because they understand rules and regulation. So culturally, right now, let's talk about language. Language is different. We call it governese, right? Some people call it gov speak. But me, I call it governese. Coming to America, I had to learn English, how to speak this language here. Many of you don't speak Governese. You have to learn this language here. And some of you are hanging out with me because you want to learn Governese. And they speaking acronyms, they speak in rules and regulations, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, right? The FAR. The FAR is over 2,000 pages. I don't know if any of you have read the FAR. But the FAR has some really interesting things on it. And in fact, let me kind of give you a quick tip about the FAR. And for some of you who's really never read the FAR, speaking the language is super, super powerful. So let me kind of give you like why you might want to read the FAR, right? So let me exit some of this stuff here. And so there's a lot of things in the FAR that might be not, you should read the FAR, but not, but you might want to start at a few specific points. FAR 19 should be one of the first part of the FAR that you read. So FAR 19 has to do with small business programs. This goes into how contracting officers should treat you as a small business. What are the regulations that a contracting officer have to abide by when they're working with a small business? So this is one of the FAR that you want to read as it relates to speaking Governese. You want to read the FAR 19. Now there's some important things in here, right? If we come in here, we start to see some really, really important things here. If you look at this here, small business set aside FAR 19502. And it talks about small business set aside. And this is where you learn how is it that the government or a contracting officer, what they have to do to set aside contract to small businesses. You want to know the same rules that the contracting officer is, they are subject to these rules here. And here's something very important here. And you start to read this here, and oops, you start to read through all of the stuff. Now, if we look further, right, there's set asides, but there's something even more powerful in here. Let me see if I can get to it. So we get into here, right? FAR 19.8. Here's something very powerful here. Let me show it to you guys. Sole source, right? We talked about this in the past. sole source contracts. And so now you say, oh, what's sole source contract? Well, sole source contracts, you want to read it. Sole source contract is where a contracted officer will award a direct contract to your business if you're 8A certified, and you do not have to compete on this here. It's a direct award, and you just receive it just because you build trust with the agency and they trust you, and they're going to give you an 8A sole source contract. In fact, I just finished working with two companies, bringing two companies together. They just got a $3 million sole source contract. And they're actually starting, they submitted the proposal. You still have to submit a proposal. Even though you're the only company, they're going to sole source it to you, but you still have to submit a proposal with your pricing to it, and then they will award it to your company under sole source regulation. So yes, speaking the language, reading the FAR helps you to understand government contracting. Now, there's another component of the FAR 15, right? Contracting by negotiation. But if you look through this here, there's a really important part of FAR 15. I'm going to take you guys down here to FAR 16. Now, this is a hidden gem that very few people know about this technique here. It's called unsolicited proposal. And if you click on 15.6, it talks about this really unknown regulation. This is part of you learn how to speak Governese, right? Is reading these rules and regulations allow you to be a better government contractor than somebody else who does not take time to read these things here. And I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to tell you what it is. In an unsolicited proposal, it is the opposite of a solicitation. So a solicitation is when the government knows that they have a problem, they created a budget, and they put an RFP or RFQ out there. They're going to put a solicitation out there, and they want someone to come and fix the problem. That's the traditional process. It's a solicitation process. In an unsolicited proposal, the government has a problem. They may or may not know they have a problem. Sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they do know. But they have not asked for a solution. And if they don't ask for a solution, you can actually go to the government and say, hey, I'm submitting this proposal because I understand that you have a problem and we have a solution for you. Very powerful process. Let me tell you a true story. So this is a company called Blue Scorpion. And they're a PR firm, right? Advertising, marketing, PR firm. So this is Kimberly. So Kimberly, little side background. Kimberly used to work for the state of Georgia for the lottery, and she used to be a spokesperson for the Georgia lottery. And so she did that as part of her early career, and then she eventually went and grew her business. But Kimberly, when she first got into the government market, she was trying to figure out government contracting. She submitted over 22 proposals and did not win. And she said, hey, why is it that I'm not winning government contracts? And I said, I don't know. Let's look at what you're doing, right? And so I taught her about FAR 15.6. She said, that's very interesting. So what Kimberly did was this here. She went to a networking event, a matchmaking event, and the USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture, one of the person that was sharing about their agency as a panelist on stage, she was talking about problem. And she said, for the Department of Agriculture, man, we got this one problem that we just can't figure out. And so the problem is this here. The panelist said that as in Department of Agriculture, they know all the big farms. All the big farms out there, they know who they are. They know how much they're growing. They know the volume. They know all these different things. But it's the micro farmers. It's the local farmers and the micro farmers. The local farmers that have like 10 acres that's growing maybe cilantro, and they're selling that cilantro to a local Mexican restaurant because I love Mexican food, lots of cilantro, lots of lime, lots of different things that goes into it. Delicious stuff. And so, or there might be a local farmer that sells a certain type of vegetables, a certain type of fruit, or whatever. The Department of Agriculture, they don't know who these local farmers are, who these micro farmers are. They contribute to the economy, but they don't know, they don't know who they are. So the panel was talking about this problem here. So as a PR firm, Kimberly's listened to this problem. So after the event, Kimberly talked to the panelists, and she said, I was listening to what you were sharing, and I'd like to learn more about it. And is it possible if I set up a meeting with you so that we can talk more about that? The panel said, oh, yeah, absolutely. So they set up a meeting. A little bit of time passed by. Kimberly went to meet with the panelists, because now Kimberly has a tool, right? She is starting to speak governese. She is starting to understand that in the government market, things are different. Because in the private sector, you just keep, there is no such thing as an unsolicited proposal, right? Because if you don't know the strategy coming from the private sector, and you're just trying to use relationship, and you're giving them golf tickets and football tickets and all this stuff, you'll go to jail. So you have to understand the game is different. So transitioning is a very different game. So what Kimberly did was, after she listened to the panelists during that meeting, she said, you know what? Is it okay if I submit you an unsolicited proposal under FAR 15.6? The person said, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love to receive that from you. So Kimberly went, she wrote her unsolicited proposal, and then she submitted it to that person. And that person reviewed it. They got their team to review it. And they said, wow, Kimberly, we love what you can do for us. And they said, your budget is $2 million. And we'd like to award you this, but we don't have $2 million right now. But what we would like to do is we would like to go and get the budget for this year. But in the meantime, we're going to award you a pilot project so that you can start executing what you laid out here for us. And so they gave her a $125,000 sole source contract. She didn't have to compete for it, right? And so she got that contract, and they started the pilot project. And so now she's doing more and more of that pilot project. And so they're phasing out the scope of what she's talking about. And they did it with just one location instead of nationwide. They started with one pilot local area, and then she's continuing on the project there. So learning to understand that the government works in different way, different language, different culture, allows you to be more effective. Because if you came from the private sector to the government sector and you're doing exactly what you're doing, you're not going to see the level of success that you have seen in the past. Now, for all of you that stay to the end, I'm going to give you this here. In fact, it's not in our it's not in my production notes. My production manager doesn't have this, but I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up, and I'm going to queue it up, and at the very end, I'm going to give it to you guys. So I'm going to give all of you this unsolicited proposal template. Unsolicited proposal template. And so there's actually, I'm going to open this here. I'm going to copy this up here, and I'm going to put it into, queue it up right here. And so if I don't remember, remind me so I can give this to you guys. But let me take you through this here a little bit. Unsolicited proposal is very simple. So let me take you through the format here. FAR 15.6, they want your company information. They want your business name, address, and then they want your technical approach. Your abstract is 200 words. Your objective method, methods, analytical approach, and so forth. Your supporting documentation, and typically they suggest that this should be about 4 pages or so, because they don't want to read 30 pages, right? But this is the template right here. This is the template. All these highlighted area here. And then I actually have a company that put together an unsolicited proposal as an example here also. So you'll get the template and you get the sample in terms of this here. So stick around to the end. I want all of you guys to get a copy of this here. So let's talk about what you're doing in the private sector is not going to allow you to be part of the 1% club. So, what are some keys to success in the government sector? So, we're going to talk about 7 keys to success. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you a copy of this here as well. And then we do have one special giveaway that only one person will receive the special giveaway at the very end. The 7 keys to success, right? First thing is relationships. Relationship has to do with establishing KLT, know, like, and trust. You got to have relationships. This is true in the private sector as well, but how you build relationship in the government sector is different. Earlier, I talked about you giving somebody a tickets to the Masters. That's a no-no in the government market. So how do you build relationships in the government market when it's very different in terms of how you create trust? I'm going to share with you one technique. This is like a hidden gem that all of you can do after today. And it doesn't require a lot of hard work. It's just a very simple technique that everybody can do. But I promise you, even after you learn this here, probably 95% of the companies that I teach this to are too lazy to do this simple step in terms of how to build relationships. They build a relationship to be part of the 1% club. It can be as easy as this technique here. In fact, let me show you the technique. Very simple technique. I'm going to go to sam.gov. Now, if you're not registered in SAM yet, register in SAM. That's part of being a government contractor, right? So I'm going to show you this very simple technique. And I'm going to come in here. I'm going to log in and give me 1 second to log in. And I'm going to show you guys this amazing door opening technique to build relationships. All right, I need my phone. So all right, almost there. This hidden gem, you guys will love it. And if you put into practice, oh man, it can open up some good doors for you. All right, so first of all, you have to be logged in into your SAM profile. So I'm going to share my screen again. Now, if you know this technique, let me know. I'm going to show you, and just let me know that you already know this technique. For those of you that don't know this technique, let me know that you don't know this technique. And then for all of you, this is the other thing I want to ask you this question here. Will you use this technique? So I'm going to come in here. Once I'm logged in, I'm going to go to search. And I'm going to search for opportunities, right? I'm going to search for contract opportunities. And some of you guys, you put your NAICS code in here. So I think some of you, Essential Informer, thank you for putting your NAICS code in here. I'm going to use your NAICS code as an example here, 424120. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to click contract opportunities. And I'm going to come down to here. And you know, for the purpose of time, I'm just going to put in 424120. Oh, there's only one project out there. Okay, that's fine. One is fine. This is such a niche area. There's only one. So I'm going to click on calligraphy services. In fact, I don't think I've ever worked with a company that does calligraphy services here. So this is the technique. When you come in here, many people will, most of the time, will not recognize this here. If you look over here, there is this button that says interested vendor list. You want to click on this here. And when you click on this here, guess what? Steve Siegfried is the only person that added themselves as a interested company on this project here. Think about that. 33 million businesses, only one company submitted that, hey, I'm interested in this project. So this is how you build relationship with a contracting officer. See, when you email a contracting officer, they're probably not, they don't have time to respond back to you. When you send them when you go and make a phone call, they're not going to answer the phone. They're busy. So for example, right? So if we look at the contract opportunity here, this is the opportunity. These are all the attachment, calligraphy, and all the stuff that they want. This contracting officer, Barbara Postel, this is her email. And you're emailing, hey, Barbara, can I meet with you? Can I meet with you? Can I meet with you? She doesn't have time to meet with you. But what she does have time for is this little button here, right? This little button, interested vendor list. You can get in front of her. In terms of emails, she probably received hundreds of emails every day, just like you. But in terms of interested vendor, only one. This is how you stand out. This is how you get in front of the people that's buying exactly what you are selling. So this is a very important technique in terms of how do you build a relationship with somebody? By adding yourself as an interested vendor here. So let's do one more. I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to put, I'm going to go back to contract opportunities, and I'm going to use somebody else. So L Boogie, thank you for putting your NAICS code in here. 531120. So 531120. So there's 256 opportunities in here. Every single one, I guess you're in real estate. Every single one of these contracting officers, they are your target because they're awarding projects in your NAICS code. So if you click on this here, right? Let's look for, okay, so this is a pre-solicitation. So I'm gonna click on this here. I'm gonna come down here, right? In fact, when you come here, you want to copy the contract officer, copy the phone number and their email, put into your CRM and track these companies on these contract officers because they buy what you sell. So you want to build a database of all the companies that's buying what you sell. But again, you want to come here and you want to click on interested vendor. Let's see. Okay, so this is because it's a pre-solicitation. They don't have that one in there. Let's go back. Let's go to another one. Let's look for a actual, okay, so this is a solicitation here. Yep, this one doesn't have that also. Let's look for one that does. But you get the idea, right? Let me see if I can find another one. Okay. Let's click on this here. Let's see how many companies added themselves as an interested vendor. None. Look at this project here. VA and project, and no one says that they were interested in this here. Now, if you do what I just showed you here, and as you go through this and add yourself as an interested vendor list, you're going to realize that on some project there's 0, some project there's 2 or 3, but you're never going to see 30 or 50 interested parties on here. So this is a very unique way in terms of how do you build a relationship with contract officer by getting in front of them on the specific project that they're looking for vendors to do work on. Very, very powerful technique. So my question is, how many of you guys know this technique? And how many guys are actually doing this technique? And then my third question is, will you use this technique to get in front of contract officer to build relationships with the people that you're trying to get in front of? Let's talk about some other keys. Past performance, right? Past performance is another key of how the commercial market is different from the private sector. If you want to be part of the 1% club, you have to have past performances. What does that mean? You're saying, Abe, I'm a new company. I have no history. I just started 3 weeks ago. I just got my Secretary of State, just got my company up. I'm in the process of registering in sam.gov right now. Doesn't matter. You still need past performances. You're like, hey, I've been very successful in the private sector, but I don't have any government contract work. I don't have any past performances as it relates to the government market. Let me show you how you can get past performance. The secret to past performance is this here. It does not need to be your past performances. It could be a subcontractor's past performances. It could be a teaming partner's past performances. It could be a large company's past performances. It could be anybody. It does not have to be yours. So the way you get past performances, remember we talked about this here? All these companies, right, that's winning these contracts, when you download this list, you download this list here, it tells you all the companies that are winning contracts that have past performance in the field that you're in. Next step is just engaging them. Hey, would you be interested on teaming with us on this upcoming project? Let me tell you another true story. She used this technique here, OSC Edge. So OSC Edge is, you see the past performance right here, right? They get all these past performances. But when Tiffany started her company, she had 0 past performance. But now she's doing about, in fact, let's pull her up quickly here. So we're going to go back to here and we're going to clear this here. I'll show you quickly how much contract she's winning. Actually, let me do her full company name. I think I type it. So this is her company. And so we come down here. She has 71 awards now. Most of her contract is with DOD. We come down here. We do it by years. You can see she's doing about $30 million as of 2023. This year, the year's not done yet. So, but she's doing about $30 million in contract. But when she started here, she had 0 revenue. How did she get to a $2.8 million contract? I'm going to share with you her secret technique. It's not a secret, but it's a secret because most people don't know about it. So what did she do to win her first contract? In fact, her first contract is not a $2.8 million. This is actually her first contract for her as a prime. Her first contract, she was a sub with another company. In fact, I want you guys to actually go and listen to her story. This is her story here. I'm going to put this in the chat. I want you guys to listen to her whole story. Her first contract was a $13 million contract, but she was not the prime. She did this with a large prime. So I'm going to put in the chat so you guys can actually go and listen to the full interview in this episode with her here. But here's what she said. She's Abe, the way I won my first contract with no past performance, nothing in the government market. She built a relationship with a large company. And she went to the large company. She said, I've been tracking this project. This project, I estimate to be about $13 million. And I want to see if you would team with me on this project. So this large company, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They said, Tiffany, we like you, but $13 million is not that big for us. And so we have our team working on other projects. Now, for many of us, we was like, oh, woe is me. We would feel so discouraged, we would walk away, right? Tiffany said, I will write the proposal. I will put the pricing together. I will put the resume together. I will put everything together. I will put your name, your logo on there. Everything will be under your company. And I will turn it back to you to review the proposal to make sure that meets your standard, and for you to review the price to make sure that that's exactly how you guys will price it. Now, if you're a large company and a small business come to you and a small business said, I would do all the work and all you have to do is hit submit, review and hit submit. Most large company will say, yeah, I'll do that with you. That's the secret, right? The challenge with most small businesses is when you go to the government or when you go to a large prime, you say, gimme, 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 right? You're trying to take away from them. And you don't go to them with the right approach. When you go to a large company, you're saying, hey, I'm bringing value to the table. And they're saying, oh, if you're bringing value to the table, yeah, we want to work with you. That's how she won her first contract. Now, of the 13 million, she didn't do 13 million. She did about 10% of the project. So, a little bit under $2 million from what I remember, but she did only about 10% of the project. But to go from zero to about $2 million on your first project of work, that's still pretty awesome. So use that technique. So let's wrap it up here. Past performance, right? Does not have to be yours. It could be somebody else. So this is where it's different. In the private sector, we call it case studies. We call it clients. We call it portfolios. In the government market, we call it past performance. Proposals. You got to learn how to write proposals and certifications. Now, you don't need certifications to win contract. In fact, about 80% of contracts are won without any certifications. So the bulk of contracts are won without certification, but certifications open doors for you. And in another class, we're going to talk about certifications. And then your contract vehicles, right? If you come to her company, right, you come in here, all these different contracting vehicles that she has, right? These are all the different contracting vehicles she has. These are it right here. So you need contracting vehicles, and you also need a brand. In a future class, we're going to talk about how to create a brand that's going to attract and create trust with buyers. So your brand is very important. And then registration. Of course, you have to be registered as a vendor to be a government contractor. So that's the 7 keys to success in the government market. So we've covered quite a bit. I want to go, and at this time here, I want to answer some questions. And then we're going to do the giveaways in 1 minute here. So let's see here. Production manager, any specific questions that I need to address? Do you? Okay, so
there was a question earlier about a subcontractor.
okay.
If I have to go all the way, is a sub part of 1%?
If you are a sub, I will consider you part of the 1%. If it's because there's 2 ways to win contract, right? One is by being a prime, the other is by being a sub. And so if you are a subcontractor to the prime, you're part of the 1% through them. And so congratulations for being part of the 1%. That's actually the best strategy to get started in the government market, by being a subcontractor. Because as a sub, you don't need to know how to write proposals. You don't need to know how to build relationship. All you need to know is do great at what you do. Be excellent at the skill sets that you have. Any last minute questions before we wrap up? And we're going to do the giveaway. So the giveaway is this here. The first giveaway is this here, the 7 keys, right? And so that you guys can go read through this or some more. So we're going to give this away to all of you. So it's already in the chat. So make sure you click on that.
You have one last minute question.
Yes, that's part of the giveaway. So I'll get to the giveaway. Now, the second giveaway is this here, this unsolicited proposal. We're going to give this unsolicited proposal sample for you. Now, when you come in here, don't ask to join our Dropbox folder. You don't need to do that. You just click on this little download button. Let me show it to you. Click on this little download button, download it. It's a Word document. Download it, and then you can use it yourself that way. So don't go to, hey, can I be added to your Dropbox? I'm not going to add you to the Dropbox. Don't get frustrated with that. But you can get it by clicking on the download button, and you can have access to it. So I'm putting this in the chat right now. So you can have a copy of the unsolicited proposal, and you can do what Kimberly did, right? Kimberly went out and got a $2 million contract using unsolicited proposal technique. So now it's time for the giveaway. And in the giveaway, this is what we're giving away. This is the course that we sell. We're going to give away to one person. So for hanging out with us and staying to the end. Now, this course, when millions in government contract without having to write complex proposals. The challenge with a lot of small businesses is that you're not that great at writing proposals yet. And so this course helps you to overcome that. Now, you still have to write simple proposals, but the key is complex proposals, right? So in this course here, I showed you a lot of different methods in terms of how you can win contracts without having to write complex proposals. So it's an awesome course. We sell it. Now, if you want to buy it, feel free to buy it, but you don't have to buy it. You just have to attend class with us every Wednesday and be a lucky winner. So this course, we sell it for about $1,997. And we're going to do a free giveaway at this time here. The way we're going to do the free giveaway, excuse me, is this here. I'm going to think of a number between 1 and 200. The only thing I ask of you is in exchange, right? For all of you who's going to participate, the only thing I ask is that if you haven't signed up yet, sign up to be part of our newsletter. That's it. So when you come in here, you're going to see, let me see if it's up yet. I'll have my, my website person does not have the newsletter up here yet. But we'll share with you next week. So for this week, just for hanging out with us, you don't even have to sign up for the newsletter. Usually the link to the newsletter is right up here, and yeah, I don't see it yet. So, but that's all we ask. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to think of a number between 1 and 200, and all you have to do is be the closest person to that number. If there's 2 people that have the exact number, then there's 2 winners. And if you've already won in the past, that's okay. We will give it to you again so that you can share it with a friend. So that's how we're going to do this here. So go ahead and put your number. Just put in the chat. Put your lucky number in the chat. I'm going to write down my number. So I'm going to write down my number here in terms of what my number is. And I'm going to put my number. And then some of you guys put your number. And then I'm going to share my screen in a second. And let's see who is our lucky winner. All right, last call for numbers. Last call for numbers. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and let's see who the winner is. All right, lucky number 167. Let's see. Let's go through here. I think Josh got 157. You're 10 off. So I guess you are the winner, Josh. You're off by 10. Oh, so close to Francois, 155. But Josh, go ahead and send an email to info@govcontractors. Say, hey, I'm the lucky winner. And then we will send you the link to sign up for the course. Sign up for the course so that you can learn and take your steps to getting into the government market. So with that said, really appreciate all of you joining us. We will be right back here next week, 11:30 Eastern Time, and we're going to do another Win Government Contract podcast. I'm your host, Abraham Shong, with the Government Contractors Association. We do lots of other classes on a regular basis. This is just one way of how we do classes. We have a class that's happening tomorrow night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's one of our really deep dive classes that we take through. Go to govevent.com or govassociation.org, and you can attend some of our, we have about 3 or 4 events every single week. So the live podcast is just one way of how we support the government contractor community. With that said, thanks for joining me on this episode. And if you are watching this on replay, be sure to click on the like and give us a thumbs up, and click on the subscribe to our channel so that every time we put up stuff, you will see it, and the notification bell will allow you to be part of the live events as well. With that, have a good one. And remember, you are one contract away from being part of the 1% club, and one contract from the goals, the dreams, the house you want, the business that you want to build, the dream car that you have, one contract away. Until next time, have a good one, everybody, and I will see you then.